Hi and welcome to my channel. So if you're new here, just as a summary, I'm going through the GCSE Edexcel Maths Higher 91 syllabus. You can also use my videos if you're doing the foundation course as well. I will try to define which videos are specially for the higher syllabus. Because most of the time in this syllabus, what happens is there's a few selected topics where the higher students do, and pretty much all the other topics are done by both the higher and the foundation students. So this is video 2.4, expanding and factorizing part 1. Let's start. We're going to start off with looking at brackets, but these are very important because because in this section, section 2 expressions, it's kind of mainly looking at algebra. Algebra is a part of maths where it's considering or dealing, it's basically dealing with numbers and letters both at the same time. So brackets take a really big role in it because with brackets, you pretty much do everything with algebra. Almost everything with algebra is done through brackets. And later on in the course, you will pretty much use brackets in almost about 60% of the questions. So brackets is quite an important thing. So first of all, we're going to look at some terminology. Well, brackets is the same as parentheses. The parentheses is the actual name of these half circle brackets. So these are usually what we call parentheses. When we're talking or writing, most of the time we just use brackets and refer to these. Well, there are a few types of brackets as well. So as you can see, here we have the curly brackets, and then here we have the square brackets. So please note that we can't actually just use any of these brackets as we please. They actually have different meanings. So for this course, for the GCSE, we're only going to be looking at these brackets, these parentheses, whereas these brackets are going to be, you're going to probably look at these brackets in A-level time maybe. So yeah. So just keep this in mind. So these are the brackets that you're going to be using. Okay, so what do actually brackets do? Well, brackets, they tell us to do something first. So when I say do this first, and I put it in brackets, so whatever is inside the brackets, you must do before anything. So this is really because, as you remember in my previous video, I went through something called BIDMAS, where BIDMAS is the order in which you have to do these operations to make your answer correct. So as you remember, hopefully, or if you don't remember, what I'm going to do is, as just a quick summary, BIDMAS stands for brackets, indices, division, multiplication, and addition, subtraction. So that's what BIDMAS stands for. So whatever is inside the brackets, you must do it first. So also brackets show a group. Most of the time, people refer to it as a group because when you have like a long line of just an equation or something, it groups out some separate numbers and letters or just numbers where you can just do the numbers or letters first, and it's differentiated from the rest of the expression or equation or the set of numbers. So that's why most people refer to it as a group. So the number before and after the bracket tells us then it's being multiplied. So when I say the number before and after, I mean if, say for example, you have a bracket and then before the bracket there is a number, but after the bracket there is a plus sign or an operation like a divide sign, plus sign, or a subtraction sign. Usually the number in front if there is no other sign like plus, subtraction, and division sign, then it means that number is being multiplied with all the terms inside the bracket. So as you can remember, a term is something that's being separated out with a addition or a subtraction. So that's a term. So the number in front is being multiplied with all the terms inside the bracket. So let's move on. Now we're going to be looking at expanding out brackets. So what is expanding out brackets? Expanding is the process when you're multiplying out the terms inside the brackets with the terms outside of the brackets. So as I said in the previous slide, where there is a number or a term being multiplied with the brackets, you're going to be multiplying that term with all the terms inside the bracket. So this is essentially normal multiplication, but this time it has letters as well. So you're multiplying because usually inside the brackets what we're going to have is we're going to have uh, an expression. As you can remember, an expression is a collection of numbers and letters, but it does not have an equal sign. So we're going to have an expression in the brackets, and we're just going to multiply it out basically. But remember, do not use the normal column multiplication method. It does not work for this because the column multiplication method only works for numbers, and it only works for numbers. It doesn't work for anything else. It works for numbers with decimal places and zeros, but it does not work with numbers which have letters as well with it, because that will be something completely different and you will get the wrong answer most likely. So how do we actually expand these brackets then? Well, here are some steps in order that will help you expand out these brackets. And this is the same process that I do as well. So always start from the left-hand side. So you're always going to start with the left-hand side because it's the easiest way to do it. Think about it as when you're reading something. Here in the UK, when you're reading English or most of the countries, with most of the languages, you read from left-hand side to the right-hand side. But there are a few exceptions of where you read from the right to the left-hand side. But because I'm reading English, it's just normal for me to read from left hand side to right hand side. So just always keep that in mind. Same as you're reading, so you start from the left hand side and you work your way through to the right hand side. So identify which term is going to be multiplied with the terms in the brackets. So what I mean by this is that so you have the brackets, and then in front of the bracket you have a number. Okay, so that number can either be in the front or at the back of the bracket, and it could still mean multiplying. So you need to make sure that you know which term is actually being multiplied. If the term is separated out with a addition or a subtraction sign, then that number is not being multiplied, it's actually separated out. So it must be a number in front of the bracket. It must be outside the bracket, not inside the bracket. Outside the bracket, that's going to be multiplied with the terms inside the bracket. So, and then what you're going to do is multiply the terms separated with a plus or a minus sign individually with the term outside the bracket. So, as I said, with the term outside bracket, that's the one that you identified in step 2. And then move to next term. So when you move into next term, you're going to be doing the same thing. So you're going to be doing it from left hand side to the right hand side. Finally, once you've multiplied each and every term, you're going to check if it can be simplified further. If it can't be simplified further, then you are done expanding the steps. If it can be simplified further, you need to simplify it further. Otherwise, you will lose marks. Because in these GCSEs, what happens is if you do not give your answer to its simplest form, they will not give you the mark for that question, and you will just lose marks. Now, let's look at an example. Example 1, expanding. So this is the same as saying this. 4 multiplied by bracket open x plus 6 bracket close. So this is what I said. So if a number here, this number is not separated out with an addition or a subtraction, therefore it tells us that this number is actually being multiplied with the terms in the brackets. So this 4, it can be either in the front of this bracket or it can be at the back of this bracket. However, it must be outside of the bracket to suggest that it is actually being multiplied with the terms inside the bracket. Now let's look at how we're actually going to expand out this bracket. So we're going to write it down like this, and we're going to draw an arrow. I mean, you don't actually have to draw the arrow, but I'm showing you where it is actually being multiplied from. So the 4, it's going to be multiplied with the x in front. So I'm gonna write it down like this. So I'm gonna put the brackets because it's much easier for me to show you that this is a group. So you do this first, and so on and so forth. So you do 4 multiplied by x. Now what you do is you're always gonna put a plus sign. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna do 4 multiplied with 6. Because you are finished with this term, now what's left over is this term, because you're going from left to right. So you're gonna do 4 multiplied by 6, which is 4 multiplied by 6, and write it like this. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna simplify it now. 4 multiplied by x becomes 4x, and then 4 multiplied by 6 becomes 24. At the start, I would highly recommend for you to draw out these arrows, and then you can just use a black pen. You don't need to change colors as I did here. I changed the colors because it's much easier for you to understand and see how and where I got these numbers from. But I would highly recommend for you to at the start just draw out these arrows to show which is which, and always show you're working. Every step of the way, always show you're working, because it's the best and easiest way to understand something, do something faster, and not lose marks. Because in GCSEs, even if you forget, say for example, you wrote 4x and then you forget this side of the plus sign, so it looks like a minus sign, and you have 24, the examiner can just look at this part of the question and say, hey, this person has already put the plus, they probably put for the minus, and they can probably take the answer, or they can just put a cross sign here and then still give you either half the marks, or they can give you benefit of the doubt marks. So that's why I always say, always show you're working to the full. So example 2, we're going to expand out this. So same as before, what we're going to do is 5x. Now this is one term. As you can remember, a term is something that is a number or letter that is being separated out with a subtraction or an addition sign. So this is a term, this is a term, this is one term. So 5x is also one term. So we're going to use it as one term multiplied by one term, not number multiplied by number, or letter multiplied by letter. We're going to use it as a term multiplied by a term. So first of all, we're going to start with 5x and going to multiply to 6x. So 5x multiplied by 6x. Now we're going to put the plus sign, and then we're going to move on to the next term, which is 5x multiplied by plus 7y, which is going to be 5x multiplied by 7y. And then we're going to move to the next term. Always, the easiest thing is to do is put the plus sign. Always put the plus sign. And then I will show you what to do with this minus sign. And then it's going to be 5x multiplied by with minus 23. Don't forget the minus. It's minus 23. Now what we're going to do is we're going to simplify. As you can see, 5x multiplied by 6x as we did. So as you can remember or if you've seen the indices video, you will know that when you're doing something like this, what you're going to do is you're going to first do the coefficients first, multiply the coefficients. So 5 times 6 is 30. And then you're going to multiply the letters, which if they're the same base, which is x and x, so they're the same base, you're going to do it, raise it to the power. So there are two x's and they're being multiplied. So it's going to be to the power of 2. So this is going to be 30x squared, or 30x to the power of 2. Now let's move on. This inside this is plus, everything's going to be plus. You're just going to keep this plus here. You're just going to keep this plus. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do 5 multiplied by 7. 5 multiplied by 7 is 35. So we're going to consider the coefficients first. 5 multiplied by 7 is 35. Now what you're going to do is multiply the letters. So x multiplied by y, they are not the same base. So you're just going to write here as xy. Now you're going to put the plus sign here. Now what you're going to do is 5 multiplied by minus 23. 5 multiplied by minus 23 is minus 115. The x is not being multiplied by with another letter, so the x stays as it is. So put this in brackets because we know that this is kind of a special case where we have a minus, so we know that we need to change this plus sign into this minus. So now we're going to simplify further. Simplify further means removing this bracket sign and changing this plus sign. So the simplified version of this expanded bracket is 30x squared plus 35xy minus 115x. So this is the answer for this expanded out bracket. Now let's go into factorizing. Okay. So what is factorizing? Factorizing is a process of breaking down a number or an expression into its factors. Okay. So this is the opposite of expanding. As you can see in the expanding, what we did was we multiplied out. In factorizing, we're breaking it down. So an easy way of thinking is factorizing equals dividing, kind of. It's not actually dividing, it's kind of dividing. And expanding is multiplying, kind of. I mean, these two things, they are not what is actually being happening. So don't don't try to remember factorizing as something that's been dividing. Factorizing means just breaking down into breaking that number or expression down into its factors. So factors are things that are being multiplied. I'll show you in the next example what I mean by this. But keep this in mind because it will help you differentiate the difference between factorizing and expanding, because factorizing and expanding, they mean completely the opposite. So keep this in mind. So let's move on. Factorizing steps. Okay. So step 1, break all the terms into its factor form. When we say factor form, factors are being multiplied to make that number, letter, or term. So you must break it down into its factors form. Find the common factor. The common factor is something that is in common, which is the same as saying it is the same through all the others. Write the common factor outside the bracket. Write all other factors inside the bracket. Simplify any remaining factors. And you are done with the factorizing steps. So we're going to look at an example. So we're going to have 15. 15 is, we're going to break it down into its factors. So factors of 15 are 3 and 5, because factors means things that are being multiplied with it to give that number. So 3 is being multiplied by 5 to give 15. So that is a factor of 15. Or the other factor will be 1 and 15. But I'm just going to take out 3 and 5 because it's the easiest one. Because this is just an example to show you what factors are. So it's not meant to be anything else, but this is just an example of what the factors are. Let's move on to another example. Factorize this. Expanding thing, what we did was we removed the brackets and then we got something that's like this. So something without brackets. What factorizing does, it puts the brackets there. It's the complete opposite to expanding. So what we're going to do is we're going to first break this down into its factors. So I put the brackets here because it helps me to pretty much group these terms together. So it shows me that this is one group and this is the other group. When brackets can be used like this because, for your convenience, because it groups things together. So it's a little brackets. You can also think of brackets as some pouches. Say, for example, if you have marbles and they're of different colors, say red, green, blue, and then they're randomly there, and then you can just put all the red ones in one bag, all the blues in one bag, all the greens in one bag. So you have whatever number of reds in one bag, blues in the other bag, and greens in the other bag. So it's a little bit like brackets, where it's grouping numbers and letters together to make your life easier. So as we can see, 3a can be broken down into 3 multiplied by a, and 6 can be broken down into 3 multiplied by 2. So what we're going to do is, now we're just going to remove these brackets because we know where this is coming from. And then, as you can see, from the first term, 3, and from the second term, 3, these are what we call the common factors, because within these two terms, 3 is common for both of these two terms. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take out 3 outside of the bracket, and then we're going to put whatever factors that are remaining into the bracket. So to make sure that you did this correctly, what you can do, a simple trick that you can do is you can just expand out the brackets. So same as what we did in the last example, you can expand out the brackets. So if you expand out the brackets, you will end up with this expression. So you know that what you did was correct. Okay. Now let's take another example. So break everything down into its factors and let's move forward. So 4a squared plus 3a is the same as saying 4a multiplied by a. This can also be broken down into furthermore, which is 4 multiplied by a multiplied by a. But I didn't, it wasn't necessary for me to do that, so I just kept it as it is. And 3a can be broken down into 3 multiplied by a. Now, we're going to take out the brackets and then we're going to write it down like this because we know where this is coming from. As you can see, A and A are the common factors. So we take out the A. So bear in mind that we're taking out only one A, because as you remember, when we're expanding on the brackets, we're multiplying that same A with both of these expressions, terms. So that's why we're only going to use one A. So we're going to put one A outside the bracket, and then we're going to put everything else that's remaining inside the bracket. So that will give the answer. So in summary, in this video you have learned what expanding brackets mean, how to expand the bracket, what factorizing means, how to factorize, and also I forgot to write in there, you have also learned what brackets are and how to use them. In this video, we have only covered linear expressions. In the next one, we will cover quadratic expressions. So what I mean by linear is something, say for example, in here, in this factorizing, we only have one term outside of the one bracket, one set of brackets. That's kind of how you say linear. And then if you had two sets of brackets, then that will be kind of quadratic term. So this is a quadratic term. This is a quadratic expression because it has a power of 2. But when you factorize it, it's actually linear term. So, but in the other one we're going to look at is quadratic terms. So thank you for listening. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and you found this really helpful. And if you did, please like the video and subscribe. Also, let others know of this channel. So if you have other friends in your school and if they're struggling with maths and if you find this helpful, please do let them know of this channel. And also, please leave your comments below on what you liked about this video and what you might not have not liked in this video or what I can improve in the future. Also, let me know if you need for me to go through anything else like revision videos. I will do the revision videos, but after I've finished making all of this content. So if it's your first time here, make sure you check out my playlist on the GCSE 91 full course content. And thank you for listening. I will see you next time. Bye.